Hi everyone, it's been a while, but I've got quite a few new things to share with you in this devlog. From finishing off the previous devlog's greenhouse building, to an all new way of handling items on conveyor belts. For those that are new here, Lumbermill is an isometric factory builder and management game I'm developing solo in Unity 2D. If you're into that kind of thing, make sure to wishlist Lumbermill on Steam to hear when it comes out or goes on sale. Right, so quick recap for the last video. I developed a whole new research system for the game. You'll build greenhouses and hire arborist employees to conduct research in the form of research points. You can then spend those research points to unlock new features, technologies and buildings in the new tech tree. What I didn't get around to implementing in that last video though was a way to actually assign arborist employees to greenhouses so they can actually get to work. So the first thing to do is to create a new component to go on control panels for assigning employees to buildings. The control panel is a small interface that allows you to manage objects such as machines and employees in the game. The new component is just a set of buttons, each displaying as either empty or information about the employee currently assigned to that slot. Next, I had to create a script to control that component before going in and actually programming the control panel itself for greenhouses, adding all the necessary components with my custom control panel library. Next, I realized I somehow still hadn't created a basic progress bar control panel component. I used these extensively back in the days when I was still building each control panel by hand, for everything from displaying power usage to machine health bars, so I was surprised to find it missing in the list of components. So same as before, I start with physically building up the Unity UI for the component before writing the script that handles everything from initializing the component to refreshing and eventually destroying it. Next, each arborist needed to be assigned rates for the amount of research they can conduct at each level. And finally, you can assign arborists to greenhouses with the new component and also view the progress towards the current research point for each greenhouse. Before we get on to the next thing though, this video is sponsored by Full-Time Game Dev, the highly popular game development course by fellow developer and YouTuber Thomas Brush. The course covers everything from the basics of C# coding in Unity to design and illustration with Photoshop. But what's really unique about this course is that it'll teach you everything about branding, marketing, publishers and crowdfunding for your game, all from the professional perspective of someone who's been there and had years of success. It'll even teach you how to get your game on the Steam front page, which I'm sure will be super useful when releasing my own game. And for anyone even just starting out with game development, the course offers everything you'll need to put together and release your first game. When you sign up, you get access to over 100 videos and tutorials, 13 editable workbooks, a 2D game kit, mastermind meetings with Thomas every other week, and access to an exclusive Discord server just for course members. The first 20 to join via my link will get a huge 40% discount, so if this sounds interesting to you, click the link in the description and begin your path to being a full-time game developer. Returning to the topic of control panels, I decided to get some more of the crucial components done that had been missing. The first was a switch component to allow the player to choose between two options. I decided to stick with a design similar to the one I originally designed for the old control panels, based on the iconic iPhone switch design. When the switch is left, the ball is red, and when it's right, it's green. I also created a special variation of the switch specifically for machines that allows you to turn them on and off. It combines the title bar with a switch, as it will be displayed automatically on every machine control panel, so needed to be compact. With those designed, I added them to the component list for the control panel generator, added the new on-off switch to the machine superclass, and now all machines can be switched on and off via the control panel. With the control panel stuff done for now, it's time to return to how machines work in the game. It's been a very long time since I've added any new machines, but it doesn't mean I haven't been thinking about the factory side of things. I've not been too happy with how the factory system works for a while now, and I've been thinking for a long time about how I can bring it up to standard with the rest of the game. Lumbermills have all kinds of interesting machinery, many of which aren't and cannot be represented in the game at the moment. I wanted to bring things closer to the actual processes used in the industry, while also giving the player more options when it comes to factory building. So this is how it works currently. Each item is predefined with a name and a sprite. Machines can change or replace items with other predefined items, among a few other transformations. The new system completely overhauls the way items are represented. Items are defined now as a list of properties. So, for example, a freshly cut spruce log might have the following basic properties: spruce, log, bark, and green, which means it has a high moisture content. Machines can then modify that list of properties in different ways or have different behaviours depending on properties. For example, a kiln would dry the wood, removing the green property. If wood is left with the green property, it may gain a warped property, lowering its value. There are a bunch of properties I'm planning on adding with quite a range of machines that I'll be developing over the coming months to hopefully give the factory system considerably more depth. To start all that off, I begun work on the new items, creating an item property class, before creating an item property bank asset for easily storing, indexing, and accessing all of those properties. Properties are represented in the game's backend as Unity scriptable objects, and I created a few basic ones to start off. All the information they need for now is a name, an ID for localization, a type, and a color, which I'll be using shortly for some UI. I added them all to the new property bank and created a couple of item templates for spruce and maple logs, which the game will use to copy the properties into a new item whenever a log is produced. I added each of those templates to the spruce and maple tree prefabs and started work on a piece of UI I have been dreaming about for way too long. In older versions of the game, there was a little box called the ID tool, which gave some key information about objects in the world when hovering over them. In this version, I only had trees, but it was cool to see things like the number of logs and the tree age. This is going to be really useful for viewing info about all kinds of things, and it finally seemed like time to add it. So, working off the same principle that makes the control panels work, the ID tool will have a pool of components that can be used to construct a unique layout depending on the object, all done on the code side to keep the project nice and clean. I started with the basic components I'd need for displaying information about machines and conveyors. In particular, a title component and a container for a list of item properties for the item currently carried by the machine. A bit more extra work went into the way item properties are displayed, as I want to use these in a few other interfaces throughout the game, so it made sense to put in time to make something that can be reused everywhere. After a bit of time spent coding everything to automatically lay out correctly, I ended up with this. Properties are listed and flow onto new rows when needed. So next, time to actually program the ID tool. I created the basic Unity component script and made it inherit the code I use for tooltips. That just makes it follow the mouse and gives a couple of methods for opening and closing the tool. Next, I set up the rest of the code, filling out the components inspector in Unity. At this point, the default ID tool used for all objects just displays the localized item name and no other extra info. In order to display some more detailed information about trees, I added a few new lines of text to the game for tree age brackets: sapling, young, adult, old, and ancient. And after programming the ID tool for trees, this was the result. The species, age, and number of logs for each tree are displayed. For those that are interested, this is all the code that's needed to create and update the ID tool using the new ID tool library. Next, I had to do the same thing for factory objects, displaying info about the current item on the conveyor. There were a few issues with layout at first, but I eventually got them sorted. I wasn't entirely sure about the design for item properties, so after 3 different variations, I settled on the third. A solid color background with dark text. You can't see the items at the moment on the conveyors, they're just represented in the backend currently. After adding an ID tool progress bar component, I also got info about the current research point displaying for greenhouses. As I move my mouse over different objects, you can see the ID tool adjust its layout accordingly. The final thing to do was to just add a toggle button to the screen to allow the player to switch the ID tool on or off. Obviously, you won't want this information displayed all the time, but it will be useful in certain situations. I made 3 icons which will all go at the top of the screen underneath the date monitor. One button for the ID tool, one for the Lumbermill interface, and another to view the island map. The toggle buttons look like this when they were all set up, each with their own accent color. Over the coming months, I'll be getting to work on the new factory system with hopefully some new machines to show off in the next devlog. I'm sorry that this one took so long. I was diagnosed with a fairly serious medical condition shortly after the last video, which I'm actively having treatment for, but I'm definitely keen to get work done on the game whenever I can. If you'd like to get Lumbermill when it comes out or goes on sale, remember to wishlist the game on Steam. Every wishlist helps me out a lot, and hopefully Steam will feature the game on release if I get enough of them. Before you go, remember to check out Full-Time Game Dev, the course from Thomas Brush, and get 40% off if you follow the link in the description. Special thanks, as always, go to my patrons, and in particular, I'd like to thank Pepper Trollman, Bratfanner TV, Warner M14, Kleb, Hayden, HPR, BD Smith, Lego Nerd, Chris Naismith, Mike James, Dominic, and Ojo Marin. That's all for this video. If you liked it, remember to subscribe, and I shall see you here next time. Thanks for watching.